Let's see. Check 1, 2. Now you hearing me? As you can see, I'm clearly out of practice from my lives. Looks okay on my end. Looks like it should work now. We got sound? Alrighty then. Okay. I got a new mic system. I forgot it was set up. I was banking on the computer mic. So getting all fancy now, huh? Got a lapel mic. Whoa. Pro. Boom. Good thing for you guys, I'd be blabbing on to nothing. Well, as I was saying, I've been so busy and then trying to recover my energy, so I haven't been doing any lives because basically there's between 2 and 3 interviews a week, and all the other stuff. And there's only one of me. So, but spring is coming and I can feel, spring is here. It's still cold out, but spring is technically here and I can feel it. And I'm trying to pull that into my core so I can present to you topics once again. And today, how it happens with me, it's usually an inspiration of some sort where I feel pulled to do something because I don't do anything unless I'm invited to do it. So it's either inspired invitation or someone is inviting me, because I won't ever allow my ego to decide. That's my way. Now I've had 3 people in the last 2 days ask me about screening tests. To me, that's a sign that I probably should talk about screening tests. I've talked about it here and there in some videos. I haven't gone into it in any great detail other than, my stance on the medical establishment, of course, and my feelings on any of their offerings. However, I'd like to go into it in some detail because still, even though people are very holistically minded, they're still asking me questions like, should I get a pap smear? Should I go for a breast exam? Should I get my prostate tested? Should I go for a colonoscopy? Should I, should I get this skin scrape test? Should I get this blood test? Should I get this urine test? All of these things. Should I take my baby to well baby tests? And of course, I think you can probably predict my answer on that. However, we want to go over some of the statistics, some of the information about why there are problems with screening tests from the conventional medical offering, which is even well known in its own literature. They are well aware of the problems of screening tests, and you can find all kinds of studies, meta-analysis, and so forth on these problems in their own literature and Riley and in all of the different databases. And it's come again, of course, to the forefront because what is one of the biggest screening tests we've seen in the last 2 years? Oh, could it be the PCR test for fake, what? Yeah, that. So you're not sick, right? No symptoms, right? And then what? You get screened. You better check just in case because, could be lingering, could just be on the back in the backdrop, and we want to get it early, or we want to be on top of it because they sell it like that's the most responsible thing. Like so they mine people's sense and morality and they spin it. So if you're a good citizen, if you're a smart citizen, then you do the right thing and you just check yourself before you wreck yourself. You just make sure you get those tests because you want to be a good individual and a good citizen. So you do your due diligence by making sure you're cool. Even though you feel cool, everything's fine, just you because of other people, because we want to help other people, however that relates. So Just looking at comments, I had taken screenshots of your research back in April 2020, and they have mysteriously been removed from all of my devices, from the Human Genome Project comparisons to the PCR. You know, I asked someone about this because I had the same thing happen, and I felt like I'm like, did I get Mandela? Like, what's going on? I had this one, I know one particularly. Here's how crazy this is. Sorry about my freaky hair. I'm getting a lot of spring grow back. Okay, so I found this awesome post, and it was like it was on Instagram, and it was many, pictures, it was like a reel of 10, and it was so well written. I can't remember what the topic was now. This was a couple months ago. And did I screenshot? No, I downloaded it through an app. So I got all of them, and I was looking at all of them because it was confusing. Sometimes when you do that, you're confused about what's number 1, what's number 10, and this particular app mixed them all up. So it was very annoying. So I was trying to actually reorganize them to repost them. Okay. And I gave up that day. I was like, I got too much to do. I make dinner, whatever, do it tomorrow. Go back to the next day, go to do that. I'm like looking for them. I'm like, what happened? I'm checking dates. I'm looking, did it go in different files? Gone. And I said to a friend of mine who's very techie, I said, how is this possible? And he's like, well, it's not possible. They can't do that. I'm like, I think they can do that, because I remember unless I jump timelines overnight, I distinctly recall, I know who it was. And so the crazier thing is I went back to the original poster and it was gone as well. It wasn't there. So weird, no? Who knows? This realm's getting weirder and weirder by the day. So I do know stuff disappears. I've had all kinds of stuff disappear as well. I can't remember details, but I know that something's gone on there. They erase stuff. Whether they toy with something energetically, who knows? But we will, I don't know, we'll prevail. We'll find it again, or we have to have faith that it'll come back to us, or we'll find it again, So this medical establishment, of course, with the screening tests of all sorts, and, when I see clients, which I haven't, in a while, because I'm setting up a different kind of platform. However, I do get these occasional emergency cases, and I've been still, doing some care of some of my previous clients. Well, I'll be like, okay, so you have, you have this diabetes, or you have a thyroid. Okay, here's one case. So it's a goiter, like a true goiter. Okay, so she's like, I got tests, I'll send you tests. Okay, perfect. I'm like, what the hell am I looking at here? I have tests for Epstein-Barr, doesn't exist. Convid doesn't exist. Some other fake virus. Okay, why? Where are we going with this? No iodine levels were measured, none at all. And I got, what else did I get? Oh, just your basic, T3, T4, TSH, which showed nothing valuable, right? So it just shows you that they don't even know how to do tests when you have a thing. Never mind when they're trying to prevent you somehow from having a worsening prognosis with screening tests. Okay, like they really have degraded over the last a few decades. I mean, it's gotten ridiculous. And I know many people would agree, because there are many of you that have gone through this process, even with dentists. I mean, dental screening is one of the worst capture tools ever. I mean, that's really what these things are. They're a way to capture you into the industry, to gather the ones in fear and sell them other products. It's like a marketing tool. And the same thing with dentists, because part of the problem is these practitioners, if you want to call them that, they don't believe in the healing powers of the body. They believe that their drugs and surgeries fix that stuff. And they also believe that the patients are stupid and are not intuitive, meaning they don't know if there's something wrong in their bodies. They're completely cut off from their body, so they can't possibly tune in and know if something's wrong with them, or like something feels off here, doc. And I sense it's this organ system, because I remember in school, we learned about the different organs and how they're all interconnected. Said nobody ever, right? So they bank on that. They bank on your ignorance. They bank on fear, and they prey on it. And it's a sequestering. It's a way to sequester more into the industry and feed off of your fear and your ignorance, right? It's never, I mean, and this is the other thing. I remember when I was, in med school, and then even earlier when you'd read occasional articles in magazines or so forth, and they'd always, of course, promote it, and they're buffered, cherry-picked science, which is all manipulation of statistics to get their rub, to make it look like it's actually good when it isn't, which is what they do with over 50% of science is all faked. And then they promote it like, tobacco science, basically. So this is why we go, and then they'll do a scary story. You'll have like a talk show, and if only I went for early screening, I wouldn't be on death's door right now, or whatever emotional tool they have to manipulate you into doing it. And then, of course, and I was like that when I was very young. I was the good citizen. I wanted to do things right, and I was shown that this is how you do things right to be a good citizen. You have a bank account, and you save your money, and you go to the dentist every 6 months, and you go to the doctor every whatever their recycling is, however often they want you. And, and I didn't realize that every time I went to the dentist, for example, I was being poisoned by fluoride. I would always get that cherry flavored gunk that they put in the little mold in your teeth, bubble gum. You get options. You have different flavored options while they're poisoning you. And I didn't know that I was soaking my pineal gland and my thyroid gland in fluoride, thinking I was doing the right thing, because the adults told me it was the right thing, and I trust the adults. And that, of course, now when you realize, when your innocence is lost, and you realize these adults are not really adults, they're children in adult bodies, and they're actually idiots, then you stop trusting the adults significantly, and you have to go off on your own and do your own research and learn through the mistakes that these are not people to be trusted. Doesn't matter if they're wearing a white coat, doesn't matter if they have a degree behind their name, it's irrelevant. They're not to be trusted. There's more to the story, right? And the same thing with mercury fillings. I remember my dentist saying it would be cheaper. Of course, they'll do that. They'll say this is cheaper if you get the mercury, and it's fine, it's safe, it's perfectly harmless, lies, and fill your mouth full of it, right? While they deny things like dental cavitations, while they continue to scrape your enamel, thinking that the body can't possibly clean its own plaque, while they say that they have to get a cavity early or else. That's what happened to me. I had a little cavity, and they said, get it early. And then they drilled it and then filled it. And then that degraded, that filling fell out. The hole was bigger. It wasn't big before, but then it was bigger. Then it became food filled. Then it became problematic. Then it broke. Then it was a root canal. Then it was a terrible removal process. And then it was migraines for eternity, and it's one process, one intervention begets another intervention. And this is their MO. This is their style. So it seems real slight and innocent and, at first, but it's the devil's in the details. Okay. So, the dentists are no better. The vets are no better than the doctors. They all do the same thing. They all try to get you in on screening, and it's all a marketing ploy, because then they can sell you their drugs and their interventions and scare the crap out of you because you're the ignorant dum-dum who doesn't know anything, and sell you more product. That's really the rub. That is really the essence of the screening. Now, if you actually have symptoms, now we're not talking about testing, we're talking about screening. If you actually have symptoms and you want testing, even then you want to be careful of what you choose to get and what is valuable and what isn't. Getting basic CBC feedback, all right, that makes sense. That's pretty much easy to do. It's not going to really hurt you. You have to make sure they're not taking your blood and taking your DNA and putting it in a database these days. What you want that for? And same with any other tissue. You ultimately never want to biopsy ever. Because once you damage the tissue, once you cause scar tissue, now that becomes even harder to heal. The body will naturally dissolve a lot of growths and tumors and things when it's cleansed and when it's given the right nutrition. And once you've intervened and you've opened up the capsules and you've started to spill everything out, now it's becoming more metabolically deranged, and it's a catch-22, and it can get worse from there and sometimes never ever heal. And of course, then they come in for the rescue with their more surgeries and drugs and that kind of approach. So the main question was that started this. Well, there were two about pap smears. So we're going to talk a bit about pap smears and why they're not recommended. And I was the type that thought I should get my pap smears. That's the right thing to do. I was trained to do pap smears. Even in naturopathic medicine, we're trained to give pap smears, which is, aside from the tissue damage and all that, it's really personal and it's really invasive, and there's cold metal going up your wazoo, and it can be done by a man or a woman, obviously, but it's still really awkward, of course, because you're vulnerable. There's a vulnerability, and I found it hurt. Every time that I had it done, it hurt, and it hurt days later, and I get pulsing sensation in my cervix from it. So it definitely is scraping. Of course, it's adding because there's ethylene oxide in the pap smear swabs, similar to the PCR. There's similar types of swabs to collect tissue. And so they're introducing substances and they're removing your own tissue. And in the meanwhile, they're damaging the tissue, causing localized inflammation. As you'll always get when you get tissue damage, you get a cut, you're going to get localized inflammation. Okay. The other part of it is then so now you're taking tissue, you're looking under a slide. So it's not in the living body anymore. Second it's removed, it's starting to die immediately. You've added a chemical to the cells. So now you've created cellular toxicity of the cells that would have been normal and natural in the first place. So the science right there is faulty, because you can't tell me that tissue that was on the cervix and then the tissue then goes through the collection process and the slide process has not been damaged further and degraded further, right? Can you find HPV in that? What's HPV? Well, that was breakdown toxicity from inside the cells. Because your body's cells, when they break down, the nucleic acid sequences start to fractionate and break down and go into vesicles and to be removed. And they think that's called a virus when it causes no disease, and it's actually the end result of a disease process of the tissue, toxicity of the tissue. All of the viruses are that, or what they call viruses. Okay, so now they can say, well, say dude wants to go for lunch and he just decided to leave your slide in the fridge that little bit longer, because who cares, whatever, an hour for lunch, that'll be fine. We'll come back later. I mean, have they even looked at the time of day and how long the tissues sat before it's looked at, and it's degrading, how far it's degraded, to see if the diagnosis that they should never do from screening. You should never have diagnosis from screening anyway. It all should be looks maybe suspicious. Now let's do some more diagnostic tests. That's what it really should be, about. But they often make huge errors, and even in the literature, and I'll show you some stuff in a bit, it says screening tests should never be used for diagnosis, ever. That's their own literature. And it says that doctors make this mistake all the time, where they use a screening test as a diagnostic tool. Oopsie. I wonder if that happened over the last couple of years with any, I don't know. Can you think of any of that could possibly happened where some kind of screening test actually led to a diagnosis? And they say you're not supposed to do that. Like, they don't. This is how crazy this world's gone, where they don't even listen to their own stuff. This is their own rules. This is like, okay, do you want me to read it to you? Do you need it? Would you like me to print it off here? I mean, what do we have to do to correct your errors? Because you're hurting people with this stuff, right? So say dude comes back from his sandwich and he starts plating you out, and then he looks in the field and he says, oh, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 7 damaged cells in here. Ooh, that's not good. That could be, stage 1. Looks like a stage. Let's stage and grade this as a something, right? Or they'll say, maybe it's inconclusive, but there's damaged cells. And we know with German new medicine, you come back to the patient, you say, well, it seems like it's within normal range, maybe on the high side of damaged cells. So, we should really just do some wakeful watching. Could be something going on. We can't be for sure. So let's rebook you in a few months and check again, and just to be on the safe side, because everything's about safety, right? Safety first, stay safe. This kind of rhetoric when they don't care about your damn safety or health. So they'll tell the patient this, and now the patient walks away with, oh my God, that's scary. What if it could be nothing? Could be nothing. Could be nothing. Could be, or it could be cancer. Oh my God, I could have cancer. Oh my God, what about my kids? What about my family? What about now the worry train starts to roll, toot toot, and their minds are involved now, and that starts to process stress hormones. So, right, and there are studies where you've given a patient a diagnosis, or you've told somebody that it could be that, and their minds run away with it, and they make it so. They create it because of their own power, their own creative power of their thinking, of their manifestation power. So that alone is criminal. And they don't go, oh, here's what the studies really say about these tests. I bet there's like 10 doctors that would actually say that. If a patient's like, I want a screening, they were, well, you're not really in the right age group, or there's no, concerning history, or there's nothing really that, blah, blah, blah. But I doubt there are very many doctors that aren't like, sure, I can bill you for that. No problem. You want any other tests? You want some drugs? Because it's money. Who's going to say no to billing for money? This is the problem. Well, one of the problems, but then what happens if they come back, oh, we tested for HPV, you have HPV. Well, of course, now there's drugs and there's other interventions, and now we should get a biopsy. Oh, it looks like there are some cancerous cells or questionable cells. We should get a biopsy just to be on the safe side, just to check. We should just check, right? Let's just be, because we're prudent, smart people, so we should just be prudent, right? And let's go get that tissue. Now you've opened up a can of worms. You've caused all kinds of cascading problems from doing that. So if you feel like there's a problem with your cervix, then you don't go get a pap smear. What you do is you do a cleanse. Now, there are Tori Hudson has an excellent vag pack protocol. You can look up Tori Hudson, 1R, TORIHUDSON. I recommend it all the time. Tori Hudson vag pack, VAG, vag pack protocol. And it will tell you what's in the suppositories that go vaginally. They're herbal. And basically what you're doing is saying, well, perhaps I should do a vag cleanse, been getting a lot of nookie these days, or I've been stressed these days, or, I've had candida issues in the past, or I had a UTI recently, or my periods are kind of off, or I'm just having itching there, or I'm getting an odor or a symptom of some sort that's giving you feedback, telling you probably it's time to clean up the tissue or help it along in some way, right? And vag pack is something you can do anytime, but it's really designed for severe cancers. Like you can do like all the way stage 3 kind of level of things, where it helps to slough off that dead tissue, rebuild new tissue, and deal with any inflammatory condition in the cervical area. And then of course, when you avoid the doctor and you make that decision for yourself, you have to do research and you have to learn and you have to trust yourself, and that I think is the hardest part for the last few generations who have been taken away from our own knowledge, you know? And this is a really big opportunity now, a resurgence now, for us to remember our traditional medicine, to our folk medicine, and to have better habits. Like, is the doctor going to say, oh, you know, those poisonous bleached GMO cotton tampons you keep sticking up there every freaking month? Yeah, that can lead to damaged cells of your cervix. So you probably should stop doing that. Let's wait and see if you stop doing that, it heals the tissue up, and then we'll go from there. They're not going to say that, right? What MD in the world is going to say tampons are bad for you? I don't know very many. Maybe there's some cool ones, you know, that would say that. But it's your own, my point is, it's your own lifestyle behaviors, the things that you are using on and in your body that are causing any sort of illness or imbalance or disease, which means that it is within your own empowerment and control to A, stop the behaviors that are doing the harm, and B, correct the imbalance back to homeostasis by proper habits, by healthy habits, you know, which include obviously what you're eating, the water that you're drinking, the amount of sweat coming out of you, your blood flow, exercise level, the amount of sunlight you're getting, the amount of sleep you're getting, the amount of stress management you're handling, the amount of deep breath work you're doing, you know, those things, how much EMF exposure you're getting, that. And it takes you time, of course, to educate yourself and to make those changes. It's a worthy goal, I would say, especially if you have children. You want to teach them how to avoid the poisons that are so much normalized. They're so normalized. It's a treat. It's just a treat. It's just a snack. Oh, I didn't have it this week. You know, it's just one glass of wine. You know, we just excuse the behaviors, but then we don't take self-responsibility for the results, right? And it's all within your control, and the tissue can heal, and even the cavities can heal. And this is the other problem with the dental world. And had I known that back when I was a teenager and had that tooth drilled out just so we could get it, you know, I would have ran away, and I would have applied mineral-rich substances to my mouth, and I would have looked at where my gut health was, and I would have looked at my mouth pH, and I would have, you know, I make Dub tooth soap, for example, which is a remineralizing tooth soap, which is how I healed my the more recent cavity that I had, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago now or something, right? You can actually build back your teeth, and they're absurd. Heretic, how dare you? But I've lived it, I've done it, you know, and I know many others who also have. And, you know, I have kittens. Oh no. I thought they would sleep through this, so I had the door open for airflow. Looks like we're gonna get some kitten party going on in here. We'll see how this goes. Hey, buddy. So I might have to step out and go put them back out into their little play realm. Hi, baby. Hi, you can't touch that, okay? Thank you. Hi, you want to come up? Come up. Come up. You can do it. So anyway, all of these tissues can heal, and the tumors can heal too. Now, one of the other problems with the sequestering, of course, are the mammograms. And we know there's problems. We know tons of problems. Here he is. This is Boki. He's my big kitten boy. Look at him. Look how long he is. Look at this thing. He was like this big when I got him. Should go out and play, buddy. And when you crush tissue, what do you think is going to happen? When you irradiate tissue, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that's a good option for your body on a regular basis? I mean, we know that ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation both have problems, and this radiation causes cancer. So it's a test or a screening tool that actually can create the problem it's trying to prevent, or so-called prevent, right? Same thing, of course, as I said, when you poke tissue or prod tissue, you can cause more inflammation, right? More inflammation can cause more damaged cells. More damaged cells can lead to, micro-infections, but really it's just your own germs coming in to eat the dead tissue, which can lead to wastes, of course, accumulating. And if your body is unable to remove the waste amply, then they can accumulate, and then they can cause more tissue damage, and the whole chain reaction can go off. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a metabolic disease or an acidic state, and then you get diagnosed with something, right? But it's the test that begets the problem. It's the same thing in pregnancy and childbirth, exactly the same. There are mothers say, I would be afraid not to go to the hospital. And I was the opposite. I'm like, I would be like my worst fear would be going into a hospital to give birth. I would never in a million years ever want to do that, ever. That's like putting yourselves like in the devil's lair and asking the devil to just be nice that day. That's ridiculous. And it's the same thing where they don't let natural, normal processes complete and go through their cycles. And it's the same thing with changing breasts. I mean, there are women who get fibrocystic breasts. There are women whose breast changes with their period. There are women who go through menopause that get congestion in the breast because of the lymphatic system is not working optimally, because they're dehydrated and their progesterone levels are down. And all they need is to rebalance the progesterone levels, get rid of the xenoestrogens, hydrate the cells properly, detox with some coffee enemas. Maybe perhaps you learn some urine therapy or how to use your own plasma to heal your body, up your nutrients, maybe fast even a little, right? And it would clear up with your own, approaches. But it's like a wound. Think of a wound. You cut yourself, and then, not severely, not to the stitches level of need. You go into the doctor and they'll say, oh, this is a wound. This is really bad. We should do something. Let's cut out more of it, and, or let's put some drugs on it, or whatever. Instead of just saying, oh no, you know what? If I just clean it, it'll kind of heal itself. It's the same thing inside your body. And what I've noticed is people get to this level of panic where they don't allow the completion. They don't allow the progression to the completion level of a disease process, because all of your symptoms that are being produced are the body's mechanisms to heal it. It's all the tumor formation, any of the growths, any of the rashes, any of the symptoms. They are the processes of release and removal of expression. And we didn't ever allow it to complete. So how do we even know, because there's so much intervention, that it just would have gone away on its own if it just was left alone, right? How many people who don't get tested, they have tumors pop up and go away throughout their lifetime? How are we going to know? We don't know. Now, if we test them, say you have a tumor, hey, would you like to opt to just, change your lifestyle, or, even do nothing? There's a study I'll show you. It's a study that talks about whether the person had I think it was a prostate colonoscopy. Yeah, I think it was that one. I'll find it. Or not. And the outcomes were exactly the same for the life expectancy. No change whatsoever. Whether they caught it or not, no expectancy change at all. It just, so why would you go through all the visits to all the testing, all the rigor? Why would you go through all the stress for nothing? You can enjoy your life, spend more time with your children or grandchildren, go on the trip you never did, do something valuable with your life. Because guess what? Y'all gonna die. Everyone. You can't run away from it. It's gonna happen, And so it's just your choices and what you do with the remaining time. And do you want to have your remaining time in fear, sitting in a doctor's waiting room? And that's how you want to spend the rest of your days in the last 5 years of your life? I don't think so. I don't know where. Oh, he's watching some squirrels outside, I think now. He's a cutie pie. He's such a love bug. All right, I want to go through some studies for you. Give me a sec. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'll find you. Oh yeah. Okay, here. Give me a second. Let's see. Share screen. I don't have two monitors, but thanks. Good computer, I think so. All right, let's see what happens here. Now, whoa, dude. Okay, that's trippy. Ooh, that's a forever. That's infinity. Okay, can you see my screen? I'm gonna just pop over. Here, maybe I'll do this. No, this. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, you should be able to see my screen. Okay, so this is a study. This was the part I was interested in showing you. So it's talking about overdiagnosis or overdetection of breast cancer from population screening, which is a huge issue with breast cancers because you can get a lot of false positives out of a lot of these screening techniques. And then that leads to the next test, of course, like I said, and they were well aware of this fact that these screenings have problems and they're overdiagnosing illnesses that just aren't there. And I've had so many clients that have been through this that I say at the beginning, once they tell me the story, I'm like, you never had that disease. You had no symptoms. You had no evidence that you had that disease. But now you have the disease because they basically gave it to you. So this is saying, as the evidence on overdiagnosis has accumulated considerably, is now recognized as the most serious downside of population breast screening. Another note, it seems like part of the fault of this is the way that industry makes standards. So for example, they find it easier to create a standard across the board that all people get the same treatment, right? Rather than individualizing the approaches based on cases. A classic case in point is the vitamin K shot for newborns. That came out of the UK based on, this one case of a newborn that had a clotting problem. And it was easier for them because I think a lot of it has to do with liability, which is so odd, but they just don't want to get sued if they miss one. So they'd rather give the treatment across the board to all the newborns just in case, maybe mitigate the delayed harm and relabel it as another disease in order to pass the buck on that liability later on, but it buys them time. But prevents the occasional 1 in whatever million possible clotting disorder deaths that might occur, right? So instead, they just make it a policy so that every baby has to get it, which is insane. It's insane. And it's part of why the industry is failing us so badly and will continue to do so. Because screening effectiveness is realized through detecting cancers at a sufficiently early stage, that's their opinion, including detection of in situ malignancy to confer benefit, and given the well-established biological heterogeneity of breast cancer, which, by the way, the other scam is telling them they have a gene problem, so they should take their boobs off ahead of time. That is one of the biggest scandals ever. Say you have the BRCA gene and you should go in and take your boobs off because for sure you're going to get it. I mean, wow, no, not at all. Not with epigenetics, the knowledge of epigenetics, and that your genes switch on and off based on the terrain and based on what you do to your body. That's what matters. That should be the established knowledge and what's told to people. Instead, they use fear mongering. So basically, it's saying that the extent that screening causes overdiagnosis is an unresolved issue plagued by heterogeneity in many of the elements, both political and scientific, that define and measure and interpret the evidence on this harmful outcome of mammography screening. It may be well that the present time quantifying the magnitude of breast cancer overdiagnosis is secondary to establishing its implications to real-life health practice and how to address the consequences of overdiagnosis. So this goes through all the published reviews, which you can see here, where there is an overdiagnosis problem, and talking about different types of carcinomas and the magnitude of it goes down here as well. So they're saying that in one of the earliest systematic reviews of breast cancer overdiagnosis, this study reported an extremely broad range of overdiagnosis estimates, from none to 62%, and also highlighted that source, primary studies, were prone to biases that may over or underestimate the magnitude of breast cancer overdiagnosis. So what it sounds like is a big mess, don't you think? They don't know. It could be 0, it could be 62%. What? Okay, I think you guys have some statistical issues based on your belief systems and your political views, and it's tainting the science, right? So here's some statistics down here. Obviously, there's different studies that are more prudent, and there's studies that are more overt. And knowing that half the studies that we see are wrong, we have to always take the information with a grain of salt, but know that if there's a suspicion, then there's usually some reason for why there's a suspicion. And then we'll go up here. So this is called, for your information, overdiagnosis of breast cancer and population screening. Does it make breast screening worthless? So that's Cancer Biology and Medicine. What do I got here? Oh, yes. This is an interesting study called Psychological Consequences of False Positive Screening Mammograms in the UK. Basically, it talks about how just what I was saying, just telling people that they have cancer when they don't, the amount of stress that they go through, the amount of harm that can cause. So that false diagnosis has huge consequences to that patient, obviously. Even later on in life, they even if they go back and they get tested again and they don't, there's still harm being done because now they don't know. And the psychology of it is quite profound and not to be underestimated. So this is an interesting little study. I'll drop the links later on after the live so you can look. Oh, the heck is this? This is me. Whoops. Let me close that. Like, geez, that looks like me right now. It is. Okay, I want to introduce you, in case you don't know who Barbara O'Neill is. She is one of my, gurus. Like, I look to her. She's my elder. I respect her knowledge. I think she's brilliant. I believe she's out of South Africa. I think she's South African. Or no, she's Australian, pardon me. She's Australian, I believe. It's a terrible accent, sorry. So this, I'm not sure if it's in this particular video. I just pulled it up. I was trying to find her talking about pap tests, because one thing, she was the one who taught me that once you do a pap test, the doctor or practitioner who does it should inform you after the fact to abstain from sexual intercourse for a certain amount of days. I think any type of time frame it would take to heal a wound. I think it was like 7 to 10 days or whatever. Or if you did, to be very careful to wash yourself right away, because the sperm, so say the woman has intercourse with her husband and they're trying to get pregnant, whatever the situation is, and the sperm sits in the cervix, she goes to bed with the sperm still in the cervix, it can actually lead to cancer diagnosis, because they'll have a false positive diagnosis from the next pap smear or the pap smear after that. So she was the one who informed me that this was happening, that this was actually a problem. The sperm being very acidic, I believe it was, or alkaline. No, I think it's actually alkaline. The vagina is very acidic, and I think the sperm is more alkaline, so it throws the pH off and can lead to an issue with the damaged, you have damaged tissue in there. So now you're causing more of a wound. You're not allowing the wound to heal. So she was the one who brought that to the forefront. She has excellent videos on all sorts of topics, very practical approaches as well. How to do, wraps, like hydrotherapy wraps, like the real, naturopathic stuff, the proper nature doctor stuff. Okay, what's the study here? This one is mammography screening, a major issue in medicine. This one is, I'll leave for you to read. It's talking about different ages of screening, the sort of the controversy around the overdiagnosis issue, the different kinds of imaging methods, that have differences in their outcomes, and of course, the problem is a lot of this is always still going to support it because it's them. This is their stuff. So most of them are like, it's good. You should still do it. Even though there's all these problems, you should still do it. So be careful of that when you read a lot of studies from them. This is a really good article from the Kresser Institute called The Downside of Mammograms. I thought it was very well-rounded as an article. say you know someone who's been going to them and you care about them and you want to give them an article, hi, buddy, hi. Then you could, give them something like this and help them through it, perhaps, right? Hi, I just don't want you to rub in my mic, sweetie. So this particular, let me see. Where did I want to read? Oh, yes. So this was talking about radiation from mammography increasing risk of breast cancer. It was talking about radiation-induced breast cancer and rupturing tumors, spreading malignant cells through the crushing. So it only takes 22 pounds of pressure needed to rupture the encapsulation of a cancerous tumor. The amount of pressure involved in a mammography procedure, therefore, has the potential to rupture existing tumors and spread malignant cells into the bloodstream. I'm sure they're hearing your lovely purring. Conflict of interest in mammography recommendations. So they did, in the journal Evidence-Based Medicine, they found a significant number of studies examining the effectiveness of mammography published by interest groups and authors with vested interest in mammography screening. Whoa, that's weird. How would that possibly happen? And while downplaying or outright rejecting the major harms such as overdiagnosis and overtreatment. Authors may have a vested interest in promoting mammography if they are receiving income from mammography screening programs, or if they are contributing to scientific journals tied to political interest groups such as the American Cancer Society, scam, which has financial ties with the makers of mammography equipment. Interesting, eh? Excuse me. I'm going to have to toss you out if you don't behave, my little one. So, perceptions of mammography benefits versus reality. This is a survey. It said that 71.5% said they believed mammography reduced the risk of breast cancer deaths by at least half, and 72.1% thought that at least 80 deaths would be prevented per 1,000 women who were invited for screening. However, based on U.S. mortality stats, screening mammography prevents approximately 1 death per 1,000 women screened. I bet that's even faulty. No, thank you. Due to the influence of mammography propaganda, women's perceptions of the effectiveness of mammography are overly optimistic and not even remotely a reflection of the true efficacy of mammography for preventing breast cancer deaths. To me, what that says is the marketing's worked. The marketing worked really well. They think it's good. Yeah. Oh yeah, a lot of the argument I see as well is that if they had informed choice on the risks, then they just wouldn't do it, right? So if everybody read a vaccine insert, nobody would do it, right? So you better, so it's like they're just going to harm themselves with that much information. They should probably stay in ignorance. It's probably better for them to not know and think it's good, right? Because people are stupid. So, and doctors especially, think they're in a higher class, like a caste system where they're better than other people and they know better, right? Anyway, there's alternative screening tools, by the way, in all things. And there's digital mammography, of course, doing a self-breast exam. But even when you're doing a breast exam, physical breast exam, you have to be gentle, a little bit gentle, but also don't freak out. Like what you should be doing is charting yourself and charting whether you have changes in tissue, because it can become bigger or smaller during the month. And it can go away over a certain period of time as well. Thermography isn't perfect, by the way. It can also lead to false diagnosis, but not so much, not as much. No, thank you. I don't like you eating cords. That's kind of dangerous. Yeah, it's dangerous. So it's a way better option if you're trying to use heat, like finding heat signatures in the body that could give you an indication something's not right, and then you could take some action, right? You could get a little more proactive on your detox and how you're healing your body. Ultrasound also, if you were, say you were in a situation where a parent was telling you how to, or some kind of, court system was forcing you to do something, or a weird scenario like that, then opt at least for the ultrasound. So I'd prefer an ultrasound. They should at least give you choices as to what sort of techniques you have available, and you should ask them what options you have. What was this one from the Cochrane Library? Screening for breast cancer with mammography. It was talking about benefits and harms. Yeah, okay. So I'll leave that one with you. They think it's fine, but they do say that there'll be a lot of psychological distress and anxiety and uncertainty for years because of false positive findings. So this was just another sort of backing that up that I said, now what are the rest? Oh, here. My little man, I'm going to have to go throw you outside in a second. Now, what's this one? Okay, benefits and risks screening test. Okay, give me a second. He's going to have to go play with his sister for a little bit. Come here, buddy. Sorry about that. Come here. I know, you are so cute, isn't he? Oh, he's delicious. However, distracting. Off you go now. Go play. Children these days. All right. Yeah, so the screening tests, this particular article is interesting. It was just, talking about, obviously it's not really prevention. It's not true prevention because you're not really doing anything. They support endoscopy. Endoscopy has its own dangers. It also can introduce all kinds of foreign materials into already damaged tissues. So say you have polyps or some sort of protrusion or some ulceration of the tissue. Now you're introducing an external something that can be contaminated, which they said that all of these endoscopies, they use them so much that they're all contaminated with some sort of bacteria. And, that's going to cause extra inflammation. The procedure itself and whatever else is involved can cause more of a problem and lead to, more runaway inflammatory process. So that, they'll say, I always do the caveat, like it's kind of bad, but you still should probably kind of do it. But if you don't, do or don't, but whatever, but you should still get checked by a doctor. Okay. We know you have to say that. That's not what I'm going to say. Can screening have harmful effects too? Every screening test can be harmful too. For example, X-ray examination exposes the body to radiation. Endoscopy of the bowel can lead to bleeding or in rare cases, serious injuries. So it's important that both benefits and harms of a screening test are assessed in studies before introducing at a large scale. So the statutory health insurance funds in Germany usually only pay for screening tests that have been proven to do more harm than good. This one actually talks a lot about stuff going on in Germany. And then the WHO has its own criteria for if the test is good or not. And I don't think anybody's following this criteria. Screening should be done only for diseases with serious consequences, so that screening tests could potentially have clear benefits to people's health. So then if there's like a 0.00 or whatever 0.1% chance of dying from the fake virus that we've just gone through, is that like how are you defining serious consequences exactly? Tell me about that. You know what I mean? That doesn't seem to fit in here. The test must be reliable enough and not harmful in itself. Oh, boom, that's bad. So you mean the ethylene oxide in all the tests, that's actually causing harm. So this goes against one of their rules here. It's not reliable at all because the PCR technique isn't a test, it's a technique. And it will grow up any nucleic acid sequence that's present. And all you have to do is repeat it more and make more copies of it to prove you have it. So I wouldn't say it's reliable and I wouldn't say that it's harmless. So fail. There must be an effective treatment for the disease when detected at an early stage. And there has to be scientific proof that treatment is more effective when started before symptoms arise. So there has to be a treatment present. I'm sure they have something, even if they just guess. Or, this is an off-label. Let's try this as an experiment. Well, we'll just try it and see. It's a lot of what doctors do, by the way. And there has to be scientific proof, but what kind of scientific proof? And who's formulating the scientific proof? And who's running the statistics for that scientific proof? More questions than answers here. Neutral information should be made available to the public to help people decide for themselves whether or not to have a screening test. Neutral information? Oh my gosh. I dream of a world like that. I really do. This is a funny one. I think they're just trying to tickle your funny bone on this one. Hilarious. It's like they say these things, doing them is irrelevant. Here's the one I want to show you. When screening is not beneficial. So this was the cancer screening with or without. And I was saying, excuse me, that they were not surviving. Like the survival rate was the same. So this was without screening. The cancer detected was age 67 because of symptoms, died at the age of 70. Then this one was cancer detected was early at the age of 60 because of screening, died at the age of 70. And was stressed for all of those 7 years. 7 years of peace was removed from this individual's reality. Yes, that let's talk about that. So this is an imaginary example developed by the Max Planck Institute for Human Development, but it's reality because this is what happens. This is exactly what happens. And, so it's irrelevant. It's not helping them live longer. But guess why? Especially, maybe if we had screening and then holistic approaches, okay, now we've got survival, right? But their methods I would say this is the other way. I would say that what's more accurate here is cancer detected at the age of 67, died at the age of 68 or 9. You know what I mean? And then cancer detected at the age of 60 and screening, dead at 65. That's kind of more likely. Because I've seen that a lot because it's the treatment that kills the patient, right? So this goes into the reliability and sensitivity and specificity are always important with tests. Man, did they, even in naturopathic college, they were all over us about understanding test sensitivity versus specificity and what's more important and which tests are going to be more sensitive versus more specific, blah, blah, blah. And it really boils down to a lot of nerdy stuff that doesn't matter. That's how I feel. Because I can tell you, of all the clients that I've helped in my career, I think maybe I don't even think I can remember one where we absolutely needed that test to figure it out. Pretty much if you have the ability to look at the patient and make proper assessments based on this subtle or overt symptoms and their signs, you can put it to, and then just basic neurological tests or basic observational tests, pulse and tongue diagnosis, that sort of stuff. You know exactly what's wrong with them. And you can figure out what organ system's involved, and you can figure out how to support that organ system with nutrition, with botanical medicine, or with acupuncture, or with homeopathics, or with all the plethora of options that we have available to us in the natural world, and support their emunctories to move the waste out appropriately. And anytime you do that, you're going to heal. Now, this Saturday, I have my workshop with Andy Kaufman. So we had the DMSO workshop, which you can still purchase the replay right now at truemedicineuniversity.com. And you can also, if you're interested, I'm going through very detailed detox on Saturday. It's 10 a.m., I believe, Eastern. And I'm going to walk through people. Here's how you detox the body using DMSO, using all kinds of other things as well. And this is the kind of information you need. Don't need the tests. You don't need to go to the doctors to find out what's wrong with you. You just need to listen and put the pieces together of what could possibly be going on in the body. And it's usually either gut and or liver or both involved. The blood is not flowing properly. There is improper hydration in the cells because of too much toxicity. And the hormone system goes out of balance, as well as the metabolic system, which is sort of one and the same. And there's your problem. Those are your problems. Those are your main problems. And it's all due to toxemia. Toxemia, the blood is not working properly. Blood does not cleanse properly. Blood's not flowing properly. Blood's not communicating properly. Blood is not able to shuttle waste out of the inside of the cell to the outside of the cell, take the outside of the cell waste to the liver, take the rest of the waste that can't be processed through the liver out through the skin or out through the lung or out through the urine. And it's staying put, and the communication systems are down because the water's not allowing the molecules and the electricity to flow properly. That's the problem with all this stuff. All these make work projects. Not necessary, none of it. But, it's important that we get into nuances from time to time so that people can understand and we can bring people out of the fog of the brainwashing, out of all this deep mind control and all this Stockholm syndrome of our doctors that they have, especially my parents' generation and my grandmother's generation. Oh, whoa, they did a number on them for the worship of doctors. Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. I mean, they're just gods to them. They have no wrong and can do no wrong. And even when they're being hurt by them, even when they're on death's door, they're thanking them. Like, what? So if you want to learn about that, if there's different screening. So here, imagine. So this is an illustration. We'll go through it. So what's a true negative? What's a high sensitivity, true positive? Imagine 10 people who do not have any symptoms. Okay, so these are all symptomless people, and the 2 people highlighted in a dark color, they have cancer. Now, if there were a perfect screening test and all 10 people were tested with it, all people drawn in a light color would have a negative test result, which means no cancer, and the 2 highlighted people have a positive test result, which means they have found the cancer. And the results of the screening test would look like this, positive, negative. If the tests were unreliable, the result would be different. Let's assume that the screening test shows a positive result in only one of the 2 people who have had the disease and leads to a false alarm in half. So 4 out of 8 get a false positive of the people who do not have cancer. In our example, this would mean that 1 case of cancer would not be detected, and 4 people who do not have cancer would wrongfully get a positive test result. So you can see here, positive, 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 positive. So it's half of them. And only one of them that actually has the disease is testing positive. And this one with cancer is being missed. An inaccurate test like this would cause unnecessary worry for the 4 people with false positive test results. Waiting for the diagnosis without knowing can be distressing. Further tests might be needed to confirm the diagnosis too. This might include something like taking a tissue sample, could lead to more stress or complications. Screening could also have disadvantages for the person who has had no signs of cancer in the test, although they actually have cancer. They will not get the treatment, that means the sensitivity is off. They will not have treatment as early as they could, and they may have a false sense of security. So this person thinks they're fine when they're not fine. They might go to a party and drink a bottle of wine and think they're good. Also, doctors might not respond properly to symptoms because they might rule out cancer as a possible cause. And once it's ruled out, it's usually out of the mind completely, and you're looking for all kinds of other possibilities. So you miss it. And a lot of times, if that happens, you have to actually erase your brain of that client and start you erase the whiteboard and start again and revisit the original diagnosis. But only really good doctors will do that. The person might then get worse care than if they had not had the screening test. Now, what happens if this misdiagnosis situation happens with, say, COVID, something like that? What would that mean if they actually had pneumonia, but then they were told they had this disease instead? Would that mean that they maybe got a different treatment protocol, perhaps? Maybe that treatment protocol was actually contraindicated if they had, say, kidney disease or pneumonia or some sort of sepsis or something like that. And then they would be put on, say, a ventilator, and in a coma, and then die. I wonder if that ever happened. So where are we? So reliable studies are needed to assess. They always say this. They always say this in everything. More tests are needed. More science is needed. More studies needed. It's inconclusive. We need more studies. We're not sure. This sort of seems like that, but we should probably do more studies. They always say that. Every study I ever read, it's like a stock phrase that's in every single one. Okay, let's move on to our Pap smears harmless article. This one's not bad. It's short, very short, but it just goes through the problems, obviously, that cholesterol checks. That's another terrible. Never, ever get your cholesterol checked. Ever. That's a statin for sure. That's even blood pressure tests. I mean, if you have white coat syndrome, you're going away with a blood pressure medication. You know what I mean? I mean, it's insane. Those are some of the 2 top prescribed drugs, you know, and they're totally unnecessary. The heart rate's going up because the blood's thick and viscous is not getting to the organs. It's got to be cleansed and purged. And most people are pretty dehydrated, and that's also part of the problem. So you don't take a drug to manipulate your pressure systems and to manipulate your vessels. You actually clean up the liver and clean up the blood, and it goes away. And it's not even that hard to treat. If you want to learn about that, I have a series on yummy.doctor. It's a 3-part series on blood pressure to learn all about that. And cholesterol, statins, useless, throw them away immediately. You don't even have to wean off them. Just stop. Cholesterol is there because of inflammation. Cholesterol is there because of cortisol. Okay. It's your stress response, and it's there as patch for your damaged blood vessels, essentially, so you don't bleed out and have a stroke. And I have videos on cholesterol as well. You don't need any of that stuff. I think that video I called, you need to be on this drug for life and other stories or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, what a bunch of malarkey. So this is just going into sort of an example. Cancer of the cervix is fairly rare as well. So they're doing a test en route, like a rhythm, like a habitual thing, but it's actually extremely rare to have cervical cancer. So the testing is overdone for what they're looking for, or the risk of even finding it. And usually there are symptoms that you'll notice, especially foul discharge, that would lead you to go, maybe something's wrong, you know. But to prevent, as like you're fine and normal and you just go in and get one, absolutely useless, totally dangerous, unnecessary, and it's just an industry push to cause the same problem and feed more people into the system. And it's a capture device. So anyway, this one's not that helpful, actually. It's not very much here. I just was talking about 4 to 5 women found at screening to have high-grade changes in their cervix, did not go on to develop invasive cancer. And that's the other problem. They find cells, and so what? So that was what was going on that week. And the cells slough off, and it's done, and it remakes, and it's done. So they're not even finding that the people who are having high-grade changes go on to, it's not, so the theory that the cell changes mean cancer is a problem. So there's a problem right there with the hypothesis of what they're looking for and why. They're assuming a lot. Just like they assume that when you take tissue out of the body, it's the same in the petri dish as it is in vivo. In vitro and vivo, very different. And once the cells start breaking down, it's a whole new kettle of fish, and you're looking at a whole new situation. You put cells in a blender and whirl them around and then pour them on I think you have something different than what's going on inside the body. And I don't see science being done, making those connections, ensuring that the removal process and the staining and the chemicals and the light and the heat and the UV isn't altering the process all the way through to say definitely at the end, this is what we have and this is why. But they don't do that science, you see. This is a problem. Okay, so let's move on. This was the other one I wanted to talk about with pap smears. This was a technician, basically a whistleblower speaking out. So he was writing about, he was upset. I'm sure there's many upset and aren't as brave as Mark here, which he left his last name out because it's smart, I would say. I do recommend reading it. It's an interesting read, but he's a lab tech. So he screens pap tests. So he's a cytotechnician. So basically cyto meaning cells. So he looks at under the microscope at different kinds of cells, or a cytotech. And he believes that fraud is taking place in this field as a result of falsely advertised and or dysfunctional products approved by a scandal-ridden Food and Drug Administration. Currently, most pap smears are no longer smears. They're actually mono-layered preparation. I just got to check where my child is. 1 second. Not yet. Okay, good. They're mono-layered preparation. The cellular material is dropped into a vial containing an alcohol solution. Well, there's a change right there. First of all, it's removed from the body. Temperature is changed. Now we're putting in an alcohol solution. Some mucus and blood are dissolved and debris is removed. The sample is deposited on a slide in a single cellular monolayer, so one layer. The great majority of cytotechs like it, including myself, as it is easier to read. So they do this process because they can see it better. Apparently, the major reason it's in place because of higher profitability. Oh, Oh, interesting. You think there's conflict of interest there? So weird and rare. The monolayer pap has an apparent dark side. It's advertised as being extraordinarily more accurate than a conventional pap smear. One corporate studies claiming accuracy increases of over 100 to 230%. A Dutch-Belgian study published in 2009 in the Journal of American Medical Association found no increases. The U.S. Preventive Services Task Force concluded the same. Same with an Australia study, blah, blah, blah. So they're not being honest about what they're saying. The apparent deceptive advertising may be deliberate for the monolayer pap. It was an FDA-approved computerized microscopes. Oh, so there's another sales pitch of another type of microscope promoted. Interesting. One is advertised as being approximately 20 to 45% more accurate than a cytotech alone. Our lab did not see any accuracy increases. Studies in Australia, Ireland, and US concluded the same. More dishonest advertising. Apparently, the device is highly profitable. It significantly increases the cost of the pap test. After the lab procured the computerized microscope, we were alarmed by the tendency of the device to miss abnormal cellularity if present in large clusters. We also noticed the device tended to zero in on air bubbles, chips in the glass, dirt, dark-colored benign cells, or just blank space. In many cases, abnormal cellularity seemed to be found by accident. So basically they took a somewhat kind of maybe useful test to some degree, and they turned it into absolutely freaking 100% useless, because if it's picking up glass chips and saying you have cancer, I think that's some issue. So I'll let you read that, because I mean, I'm sure you are not surprised. I'm sure you are not surprised when I tell you that there is a problem, obviously, with some industry dipping in the fingers of the money, and profits over people. And I mean, this is what's so absurd about this day and age, that we know this stuff. This is not news. This is not new. We've known that there are problems of industry and money and politics in our medicine. I mean, from the days of Rockefeller, this is the beginning. And yet still people just blindly trust these institutions. They still blindly trust their doctor. They think science is somehow settled. What does that even mean? Settled in what? The only place it's settled is in like a pond full of scum. Settled in with the rest of the scum. You know what I mean? This is absurd. There's no clarity of thinking or logic when applied to the discussion, of, hey, maybe that test isn't really that great. And just because it's become a gold standard, industry standard, means nothing. Vaccines are an industry standard too. Okay. And they kill and maim and hurt. So this is where we've gotten to, right? Yeah. So this is where we're at. This is where we're at, And so when well-meaning people who know about holistic medicine, who even know a lot of my work, who understand the principles of nature, who grow their own food or trying to homestead, and ask me something like that, should I get a pap test, or a pap test useful? Then just, okay, good. Now you're there. Now you're questioning. Maybe you just didn't have time to question that, that part of things, because, all of our lives, we just did it because we just thought it was right, or we trusted our doctor, or we seemed fine from it because we already take care of ourselves. So we recovered from the pap damage. So we didn't seem to see it as a big problem, right? Now, I mean, there are valuable tests. I'm not saying, but this is for use. The testing use, here's the only time I would ever encourage testing, is when you have done all the things that you know to do for your body. You have a certain set of symptoms, maybe not even a diagnosis, which I don't even think is necessary. You have a certain set of symptoms. You're able to identify that something's wrong, obviously, but you apply some changes to your lifestyle. So you start to do something that's trying to help you. And then maybe you're not getting the results you want, or maybe you have a lot of unanswered questions because it's a really strange situation that you're in, or you want to verify something just for your own sake. Like, Like say you're having detox problems and you want to know maybe you do have the MTHFR mutation or a COMT mutation or some sort of mutation that you're actively working through, which means your detox mechanisms through the folate system is not working properly. And that's important to know. Like if you're not methylating properly, if you're not tagging your waste properly because your detox systems are under functioning, you can do one of two things. You can assume that that's the case and apply the corrections and see if that helps, because that's evidence as well, right? If you have an imbalance and you're not sure, and you're like, I don't know if I want to do the test right now. I don't want anybody to have my blood products right now. I don't trust them. So go on a working hypothesis. Say, well, I know that if I don't have enough, type of B12 and folate in my system, and maybe I should apply some trimethylglycine. Let me try those three things and see if I improve. And if I do, then it's a working hypothesis that I can work on more so I'm getting a result from my actions, and that's like a clinical response. And then you can make those decisions and say, I think I'm on the trail. I think I'm getting, like you're a sleuth, like you're a detective. I mean, that's what I always see myself as a health detective. I'm detecting. I'm getting feedback from applying something, getting a feedback, and that gives you information. If something doesn't work, then that also gives you information as much as if something works. And it tells you, it steers you in a direction. So then you can use that. But, everybody's different. And like, I have like emotional autists that they don't have an intuitive bone in their body, okay? They can't feel intuitively. They don't know how to connect to their higher knowing, instantaneous knowing. It's not a thought process, it's an instantaneous knowledge. They don't have that. They don't have that system. So they need facts, evidence, data, statistics, whatever, to help their mind figure it out. And that's then okay. And then say you need tests because you're an autist like that, or you need that. Fine. But then make sure that the facts that you have first are there. Here are the symptoms I have. Here's the severity of the symptoms. Here are the patterns I'm seeing in my life. Yes, I've applied these changes, or yes, I've done these improvements, and I've only seen this percentage of improvement. And I want to know what's going on with my blood, or I want to know what's going on with all my evacuatory organs. Fine. Then, but be aware that you're still opening yourself up to risk anytime you involve yourself in any of these tests and techniques. So I'll look through questions real quick and then we'll wrap it up, because I'm going to have to go get my daughter pretty soon. And I'm glad I got this time with you today, and I could help you, whatever piece you needed to hear from this that either validated you or, sent you to some other information to learn, because that's what we're doing here. We're always learning, and we're trying to basically get out from the thumb from this insane group of nut jobs that think they have every right over us and trying to keep us enslaved and enslave us further. And if we really want to free ourselves, we have to get out from that. And that means you can't run to them when you have a problem, right? We have to seek other options when there's a challenge before us, right? So that includes our healthcare, and that includes how we diagnose and treat illness, and how we, if we even need testing, at all, and other methods of knowing, of our body, what's going on with our body. Okay, so let me just do a quick. So if anyone has any questions, I hit it now because I don't think I can scroll forever to this thing. Have I done your promised get rid of yeast video yet? No, I clearly haven't. I will. It's just, I'm actually still in the midst of a couple of bigger projects. I'm actually going to debate a medical doctor on the germ theory lie. So I want to be prepared for that. And I'm doing, obviously, the detox thing this weekend. And I'm on Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson live on Friday night. Yeah, Friday night. I'm on Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson show. And I'm going to talk about the vaccine, what's in the vaccine, as far as what's all this, the studies of all the weirdness that's in this weird, well, I got to talk about the Pfizer one mainly, the Comirnaty, whatever stupid name one, and she wants to ask me about a couple other things anyway. So I've just got a lot happening, but it's on my list. Talking about Candida will be question. Where can we find out about your talk with Dr. Kaufman on Saturday? Just go to truemedicineuniversity.com. I'm right there. And what I'll do, actually, I can, where did I put that link? Let me think. I have a link and I will find it for you. And I will give you the actual thingy, proper sign-up link or whatever you want to call it, that take you right to it. So what you'll do is you can get the replay of, here I found it, the replay link from last Saturday, which is like 4 something hours, and then all the freebies. I put it in the chat, and then you can, and then it purchases for this Saturday too. I think there's a choice, but yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, I did it twice. I'm like, oh, someone else did. I'm like, no, I did it twice. Okay, you got it. All right. So who plugs Trump? Oh, I know. One of the talks I want to do very soon is just about what's going on in our truther community. You know, it's tough, and it's gotten me kind of down, to be honest, because it's quite a mess. And I don't know, at this point, there's illusions everywhere, right? There's in their world, in our world, we're just trying to work through illusions, and everyone's working at the pace they're at. And yes, there's like people who will not unstick themselves from it because of ego. And then there's true controlled opposition that have agenda. And then there's people who are just maybe ignorant or whatever. And then, or they just don't know meaning yet. And they would change their tune if they found out or something. So it's hard because, you know, integrity is really super important. And at the same time, we're also trying to educate. So, you know, a lot of the people that we've challenged with their beliefs, they don't seem to waver, you know. So it's hard. Like, do we throw the baby out of the bathwater with the bathwater or not? Is that what we do? You know, do we just ignore them, or what do we do? Like, what do you do when somebody has a different belief than you, or you're in a disagreement with them? You just tell them to F off? Or do you, like, if they're a good friend of yours, say you have a good friend, right? The decision is, do you accept them for who they are, where they are at, and still remain their friends and still try to be there and maybe model for them, you know? Like, do you raise yourself up and model for them, or do you just tell them to fuck off, you know? That's the question, ultimately. So I've been wrestling with a lot of that lately, like how mad I can be at people who are so ignorant or who are doing things like controlled op is a whole different story. But for someone who's just who they are, I don't know. Do you just try to still be in your integrity and present, right? And not shun them? Because what if they come around to it and you're then there for them rather than abandon them? What if it was you? What if you were like, oh, Trump's awesome? And I was like that. I fell for Q and Trump for a little while there. I wanted good things. I was just wanting good turnout. So I wanted to feed it. I wanted to believe it because I wanted to see if my beliefs fed it as a manifestation experiment. But then I realized it was just a ploy, and then I dropped it immediately as soon as I saw it. Not everybody's like that, you know? They don't continue to work on themselves, or they don't continue to work on the energy, or they don't continue to keep gathering evidence and, you know, concretizing the thinking. So, but what if it was you? What if you were, you know, tricked into something, thought something was real and it wasn't? And then you went to a friend's house or something, and a bunch of them were sitting there and they were talking about the thing that you didn't know about, or the thing that you thought was like different. You know, say they were talking, you were a Putin supporter or Trump supporter or whatever you are, and you go in and they're talking about how they're all part of the World Economic Forum and they're all puppets, and they're blah, 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 blah. And then they heard you say, well, I like Trump, or I like his policy here, or I like whatever. And they tell you to just leave because you suck and you're a loser and you're an idiot. How would that make you feel? And then what would you do after? Would you go, oh, they're probably right, so I should go do some research? No, you're probably like, fuck those you're going to be emotional, and you're going to probably reject it further. Wouldn't you? Rather than if they said, okay, well, we'll work with where you're at. We don't feel that way. We don't think that's real. We can show you, if you're interested, we can show you some evidence, that proves that, Putin or Trump is like, supporting Israel, or supporting World Economic Forum, or supporting vaccines, or pushing the agenda, or part of the UN, Agenda 21, blah, blah, blah. We can show you that evidence if you wish, and you can exclude them perhaps from the conversation. I mean, what would a mature adult, right, secure in themselves, in their knowledge base, in their wisdom, how would they do that? What would they say to a child who did that? Because I see them as children. Just see them as children, right? Because if we just hate on each other, I don't think that gets us places. I just don't. And I understand the frustration and anger and rage. Trust me. It's very frustrating. But I don't know if it's the solution. I think the modeling, the behavior is more telling than anything else, right? So I think we have to be careful of name calling and ostracizing. Like, I don't believe certain things that other people would believe. And I'll have people on my Telegram channel who post absolute garbage, and it's my channel. And I don't want the absolute garbage in there, so I delete the absolute garbage. It's my channel. I don't want that stuff in my channel. And it's not what the channel's for. It's not what the rules that I've established in the channel say. So I'm trying to curate something very specific. And then people they name call me or be very rude to me for that. And that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable behavior. No, adults don't act like that. An adult would say, oh yeah, I'm sorry, that's not in your group rules. I understand. That's my own belief I'm putting forward to everybody else, and everybody believes that. That's what a mature person would do. But instead what they do is they name call you, and then they go off and they slander you behind your back. That's what children do. That's what immature ego, people in their ego who are immature, that's what they do. They name call you, slander you, talk behind your back. They're lower people. They're people who haven't figured out themselves. They're not wise. They're not smart. Because if they were wise and smart, they'd be talking about the ideas, and they'd be trying to understand themselves better, and they'd be reflecting on their own behavior. Go, wow, why did I get so violently reactive just because that person wouldn't engage with me or wouldn't give me what I wanted from them? Oh, I want something from them. They wouldn't give it to me. So now I'm going to slander them and backstab them, name call them, and all this kind of nonsense. It's ridiculous. It's immature. And it's not it's not the behavior of someone who is working on their spiritual health, their mental, emotional health, and working towards being in their wisdom body. It just isn't. But I will do a live on that, But understand, my point is, we all come in with our beliefs, and we all are working towards the knowledge, and we can make mistakes, and that's okay. It's okay. And it's okay to say no and have boundaries. And I found a lot of that is a problem in my world, where I just had a problem with my own boundaries, where I let in too much stuff. I let people take too much from me, and I didn't say no enough. I had to learn to say no. And then when people, you allow people around you, and you're always saying yes to them, then you finally say no. And what do? They slander you, backstab you, name call you, become aggressive at you, try to destroy you. This is the behavior. This is not anyone who's awake and really in truth would never ever do that to anybody. They're an illusion. So keep that in mind. They call it Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah. It's hard, because when you just look at the facade of Trump, like if you just looked at a lot of his policies and a lot of this stuff, a lot of them were really good. I think what he did was actually really good for what he was trying to do, like just from that. But that's when you understand that they do a good guy, bad guy routine all the time. They do good cop, bad cop. Then you're like, well, that's just a play. So they come in and they have the bad guy, the dumb one that they have now, saying dumb things, sniffing children, and can't even speak sentences. And they look like idiots. Then they put in another one that looks coherent or whatever, and then they play around with the mind. So in this case, they tried to make all the lefties hate Trump and all this. Like, it was just a nightmare. It was a division circus. So they're just doing this left-right paradigm game to say, oh, he's good, oh, he's bad, oh, he's good, oh, he's bad, so that everybody just fights each other and nobody gets anything done. They're all in on it. It's a red and white it's a blue and red paradigm. It's the two sides of the same coin, but they play you like that. Can't be all evil or wouldn't work. There has to be good, something presented that's good, so that this common person who has some brain cells to rub together can go, yeah, he's okay. I like that policy. I like that. I can excuse his behavior for that. I can do this for that. But you're missing the big picture part of it, right? You're just focusing on the little stuff, the nuances. And then, of course, someone's going to have a disagreement. And then you're going to get in. It's division. It's just division and conquer, division, conquer, division, conquer. It's all the same techniques. When you see that, when you step back, you see the bigger picture. It's all divide and conquer. Like, doesn't matter what policy is good anymore. Irrelevant. Because then they're going to put another goon in there that's just going to undo it the next time. Doesn't matter, because this is how they ping pong you. Then you start to see. Then you don't fall for stupid Ukraine bullshit. You don't fall for any of it. You don't fall for Putin's a good guy. You just don't. None of them are relevant to you. They have ultimately nothing to do with you and do not deserve 1 ounce of your focus. Your focus should be on growing food, getting out from under the system, financial security, all the different security of your land, your independence, and your collaboration with your local community. That's your focus right now. That's it. Not arguing on Telegram because you want to, push your belief systems on somebody else. You're wasting your time because time is short. Be productive, work on yourself, and stop wasting your time on the infighting, and especially in our own communities. Okay, let me go up a little bit higher here. Bone setting. Yeah, will you be offering any? It's not, maybe. I mean, that's a good one. I'll put it on the list. I'm not a bone setting expert. But what would be really good is for us to actually acquire the old world knowledge of how to reset bones and to have it in PDFs or have manuals, to have the actual books, so we can learn how to feel for so learn what types of fractures and breaks, learn how to approach a break, obviously, how to triage the situation properly because it's an emergency, right? And then how to obviously use DMSO right away, always right away. And then how to set it would be an instructional manual. We just have to learn the instructional manual, and how to correct different types of fractures and how to assess that that's the fracture you have. And then it's different for different bones as well. But very interesting, and definitely we need it. Okay, so let's see. See if there's any other questions, and then we'll wrap it up. So, okay, we answered that question. Good. Gout. Did I do a video on gout? I don't know. Somebody should look up on Yummy Doctor. I did one. I've done so many now. I thought I did, though. I mean, gout being uric acid, got to treat the kidneys. There's a blood problem. It can lead to like a underlying sepsis. So alkalizing the system, detoxing through enemas. Food has to be altered for sure. Getting off all drugs for sure. And that's an absolute. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything specific. There's just so much here. My goodness. Yes, and how to build gardens. Good job. All right, so good. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. Crazy times, and definitely Oh, there's a question. You have mentioned an alcohol wash to deal with mites. Do you have that info somewhere? Oh, sorry. Stop it. Yeah, so my vodka skin healing solution is based on Dr. Robert Cassar's his protocol. So you use vodka as the medium. You put the powders in the vodka and you scrub the body with it, as well as suggest using fresh urine to deal with mites as well. Apparently, it's a good like natural insecticide. So you can use your own urine. The flies and the bugs don't like it. I'll test it out because the season is coming. The bug season is coming. So I'll test out urine like that. And yes, they talk about, I gotta go. Anyway, at yumnaturals.store, go to vodka skin healing solution and all the ingredients will be in there, and it has the procedure. Shake it, scrub the skin with it. It opens up the pores, and the diatomaceous earth very specifically, and the vodka as well. But both of those will just kill mites. And then afterwards, after you rinse everything off, you can sun yourself. You can put magnesium oil on, and then you can rub your body with either coconut oil mixed with olive oil or some sort of shea butter, something oily, to make sure any of the eggs are oiled, which will suffocate them. And then you should repeat that every time you shower. You should repeat that, wash your sheets and vacuum and clean, make sure your space is nice and clean and cleansed. And that will take care of mites quite well. And thank you. Yeah, I love that when I make something, I perfect it, and then there it is. That's what I did with the tooth soap and the deodorant. And the deodorants, I put probiotics in it, and it seems to really make a big difference with the formula, and how it just you don't block anything, but you don't stink, which is lovely, and it helps to actually detox the pits a little bit too, slowly. If you want to learn about urine therapy, go to yummy.doctor, type in urine therapy. I've got, I think, at least 3 videos up on it now. Dr. Tom Cowan's going to interview me soon on urine therapy as well. So I'll go into even more detail on that when I do that. But it's not waste. It's actually excess. And it's majority of it's plasma, and it has all kinds of micronutrients in it, and information that gives feedback to the body. And it's a very, very healing substance, and it's your own perfect medicine. And I've had nothing but miraculous experiences with it. And so have many others who I have encouraged to try it, including reversal of gray hair, dropping wrinkles, slimming down, getting rid of parasites, healing all kinds of tissue. I even had a friend of mine just write me, I got to write him back still, but he said he put his own urine in my facelift in a jar product, and he said it enhanced it like 20-30%. He's like, it's already an amazing product. You add your own urine, it's off the charts. I'm like, oh, I'm going to try that. Urine added with the DMSO. So the kidneys can be used for a certain percentage of waste removal, especially if you're doing like a challenged metals cleanse, then it can do that. So then there's certain times when you use it and you don't, because of, the certain types of excretions that might come out of the kidneys. And you have to be very careful if you're on drugs, because about 30% of any drug taken is coming out through the kidneys unaltered. And then there's waste products from that too. So you have to be careful using urine therapy when you're on drugs, which you shouldn't be on anyway. So there that is. Okay, I got to go get my gal. And hey, ADV midwife is calling for full blood screening to check levels. Any thoughts on things to look out for? Well, why? Sorry. Iron? I mean, iron. What just CBC, something specific? I mean, why? Unless you're having symptoms and you're really tired, I wouldn't let them do anything. Even the midwives are terrible. Most of the midwives are ruined. They're medicalized, and they're almost just as dangerous as the medical doctors, sadly. So I would have just done an unassisted birth had I known what I know now. I would have just maybe had a doula, someone who knew how to check if I was 10 centimeters dilated, now I'd be good to go. How to do the procedure just to get the cord out from the neck to check the cord, that procedure, you need someone to help you just do that. How to read a book on how to unblock shoulder dystocia, like when the shoulder gets caught. It's about it. Then I would do it unassisted, just with someone who knew those procedures. That's it. I wouldn't go to any of these. Midwives are hot to trot on the Pitocin, oxytocin injection. Never needed. They rush you through the release of the placenta because they're all worried about it. Don't let them rush you. Don't let them inject you. Don't let them rush you. Don't let them poke and prod you. Double check your cervix. They brought my daughter in 2 weeks early because they were hyper vigilant on my cervix because I had a single umbilical artery, which is completely normal variation in pregnancy. And they made me worry about it. They tried to make fear all about it. These are midwives making me scared that my baby's going to be too small, that I might have a preemie, and all these kinds of threats. Like, you know what? I had a normal birth, and you guys risked my pregnancy and risked me going to the hospital because I was right on the edge where I'd have to go in for preemie, because they stimulated my cervix, because they were afraid that the baby was too small, and they kept measuring me over and over and over again, calling me and stressing me over it. So even the midwives, tell them to back the hell off. So just, you know what the midwives are good for? Telling you that you're 10 centimeters dilated, checking if the cords are wrapped around the neck, and doing all the paperwork for you. They're paperwork people. That's what they're good at. I'm just, I can't make it to my appointment this week. I'll try to get it next week. That's what I'd be doing. I wouldn't let them take blood. I wouldn't let them take anything. That's my opinion. All righty. Yes, they can be dangerous, the midwives. All right. We'll talk the DMSO dosing for detox. I will be going through in detail on Saturday. I hope you can join me for that lovely thing. Oh, and also I want to show you, now let me share my screen quickly again. I have a, here, let me do this. I have this, there's a, I'll give you the link. I promote not too much stuff, but I really promote this EMF virtual summit that's starting tomorrow. Oh my God, it's starting tomorrow. Now there's tons of speakers and they're teaching about 5G, EMF protection, how to detox properly. This is a problem here, Children's Health Defense. Just like I said, take the good with the bad, okay? They infiltrate everything. You can't avoid them all. So just take the good with the bad. So this is, there are a bunch of experts. A lot of them I like. I would recommend Magda. I like her. I don't know her work, but I would be intrigued with the anxiety stuff. Who else do I really like? One second. Here are the participants. I like Josh DeSole. I love Dr. Daniel Pompa. I love the Wolfsons, both of them. Brian Hoyer. This is interesting. The Shielding Your Home. This is a valuable one, I would suggest. Who are these? This one, I don't know. I might be interested in. I haven't watched her before. Not interested, Mercola. Not interested. Wolf, maybe. A lot of people don't like him. No thanks. Controlled Op Shill. Robert F. Kennedy. I don't like Batar either. He's questionable. The rest of them seem pretty cool. For wireless knowledge. Okay, so anyway, that's happening starting tomorrow. So I'll drop a link for you guys. And I think we got to learn about this stuff and how to actually protect ourselves, because the world's gone batshit crazy, as you probably know. Here, I'll drop the link. Here we go. Oops. And probably go through on both my channels. There we go. Can you put DMSO in homemade baking soda deodorant? I would not do that. I don't even use baking soda in my deodorant because it's too caustic. It's not the right pH. Baking soda is alkaline. Your skin is acid. You don't want to use baking soda on your skin. You want the acid mantle there. You don't want to baking soda your skin. It's okay. So I've never, that baking soda and deodorant thing is a no-go for me. I don't use it. The one I make is not there. It's not in there. Okay, so there you go. All kinds of goodness for you. Glad I could spend the time with you today. It was very lovely. And thank you. And we'll do it again sometime. And hopefully you can join me on some of my other adventures coming up, and we'll go from there, huh? And just remember, everything that you manifest reflects back to you. It's always this mirroring. So do the work. Just keep doing the work and trying to get yourself closer and closer to love and peace in your life, and, you know, good boundaries, but also accepting of things, right? And good balance there. And we'll get through this. We'll get through this together. All right. Okay. ADV out. Bye, guys.